And deeper. Save. 451. It's not an 0451, but still 451 on depth. Significance. It's not like it's the genre we're playing or anything, but you know, might have been intentional. Just the fact that this height's the same in every game. We went this far down so we could go back up, huh? Oh! You calm down. You calm down.
Translating local alien broadcast. Warning, vaccine development program terminated. Emperor A fetching project terminated. Live specimens terminated. Evacuate immediately.
Ion cube fabricator. It fabricates ion cubes themselves? Huh. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. Translation device. Are you coming after me? We gonna go? We gonna go? Come on. Ow. Okay, rude. Oh, it's chasing me. It's actually chasing me. I wasn't sure if it would attack me or not because it didn't seem to ever really be attacking me. It seemed to basically do no damage to me, almost like it's just like a stun. Huh. Look at it rocking back and forth, like it's waddling. Are you coming after me right now? Like for real? I don't know. It's got a very temperamental amount of aggro. Let's scan everything. I'm gonna scan everything and go upstairs where hopefully there's not one. And then I can go read stuff there in safety without being jump scared during my reading. This place is huge. Really open too. Even more so than normal. A rudimentary tablet. I wonder if the inference is that it's a proto version of the other tablets? Why do they have a museum here though, I keep wondering. Aren't they, like at first I thought, at first you would think that the people are just from here. Wait, that's a yin yang. With like a dragon design. Why are they, that's straight up a yin yang. Is that gonna have inference, I wonder? Ancient blade. Huh. I wonder if there's gonna be connections to Earth here. All of those had something in them, right? Except that one was just hard to spot because it was a sword. Let's check the one that I thought was empty. There's something in this one? Empty case. Nanobots. Oh, so it's not empty? Okay. Curious. Well, like, you would think that this was like a at first, when you see the first place, the containment facility, you see that one museum area and you're like, okay, yeah, museum area, that makes sense, that's fine, aliens can have museums. But then you find out that they're like this massive intergalactic empire that went all over the place. To the point of having like quote-unquote core worlds and stuff. We're talking about like Citadel space from Mass Effect, basically. That kind of scale. So once that was the case, then it's like the idea that they established a facility for figuring out this disease makes it weirder that they have a whole museum here, because like this isn't their home. This is just some world where they made a facility. So like this isn't where their culture is based. So like I wouldn't expect to find museums on a place that's like a more utilitarian outpost, but maybe that's just not how they roll. And some Enzyme 42 project data. Oh, we're gonna keep finding stuff. Hello. That looks like the shape of the thing that keeps going at me. So this is probably the Sea Emperor babies, and then the Sea Emperor is talking to me. judging by that face design. That's creepy. Oh, there's stuff going on here. Let's read what I have so far, then I'll start scanning this place. This is an important location.
I am what you seek. Want to help you.
You probably have something to benefit from me too, though, right? 12 data downloads, holy crap. Let's do the artifacts first for fun. Alien building block. This rock-like object features organic as well as mechanical parts. There are some genetic and technological crossover with the design, as well as with the design of the self-warping constructs encountered elsewhere. So it's like a warper? It appears to serve no purpose in its current state and is awaiting some kind of activation sequence. Materials such as this may have been a fundamental building block in the aliens' technology, or even the aliens themselves. It looks like a bunch of like cells, like cell membranes, kind of little chunks and divots, but then like those almost look like screws. And there seem to be like runic engravings on it. Yeah. Alien carving, which looks a lot like a yin-yang. This carving is hundreds of thousands of years old and made from an unrecognizable natural fiber, grown on an unknown planet. It bears striking resemblance to the old Earth yin-yang symbol. Two competing theories may explain this similarity. Aliens visited Earth prior to 4th century BC and influenced the development of ancient Chinese philosophy. Or the concept of yin and yang is universal. Since yin and yang describes the fundamental interdependency of seemingly opposite forces, it may be a necessary existential understanding in some form in all sufficiently developed civilizations. The tapering of two circles, union into opposing and infinitesimally small points, the finite, is one logical way of representing this understanding, and may have been developed independently by species other than humans. Yeah? They're both technically possible, yeah. It's not a completely crazy concept that somebody else would come up with the same idea. Although the fact that they even have the same dot pattern is on top of everything else. Like the specificity of the design being identical almost is really close. That's crazy. Although they didn't use the idea of the dots in the middle being made of the other substance. It's some other third substance, which is weirder. But it's also possible that they may have meddled with human history a little bit. Also an astronomically small idea, but possible. I mean, 4th century BC, it's just 2,400 years ago, and this thing's supposed to be hundreds of thousands of years old, so it could have been. Alien statue. This artifact is unpowered, suggesting it served a ceremonial rather than practical purpose. The pyramid resembles vines, spiraling upwards towards the warm blue stone mounted above it. It may represent a plant found on the aliens' homeworld, a building of religious import, or even the gravitational pull of their home solar system. They're just vague, potentially ceremonial things that'll have some sort of meaning to them. We can only guess. This is super familiar, though. Wait, it literally is an earth blade. An ancient earth blade dating back to 13th century. Blood samples of the blade match DNA of 7 separate heads of state from the period. This evidence supports the theory that the aliens are an ancient, space-borne civilization engaged in the surreptitious study of less developed species. Okay, so at this point, yes. You can pretty much assume that the yin-yang came from these aliens in this universe, because they have made contact with Earth. This is not only is the blade identical to designs you'd see here, but it has blood of Earthlings on it. Holographic projector. The device contains network apparatus and a holographic projection unit. It was likely used as a communications relay, capturing and projecting the image of the user to a remote location. There do not appear to be any other devices in range. The takeaway, I think, is to mention that, like, they probably have a prime directive, like Star Trek. the whole thing where like you can observe and witness other alien races, but if they're not spacefaring yet, you should not engage with them directly. That's used in Star Trek, and it's used in Mass Effect. In that one's case, the idea is that you should not expose to an alien species the fact that there is like a larger galaxy of races and stuff like that until they found their Mass Effect relay and sort of connected to the rest of everything. Where a core part of the story is the Krogans, which were uplifted, which means they were sort of forced into the galactic scene with it having not actually gotten to that level themselves culturally and scientifically as a society. So that may have been what happened here, is that we were avoided, essentially. And as a result, we were saved from an apocalypse. Much like in Mass Effect, the idea that, like, the Reapers are wiping everything out, but, like generations of wiping out everything happened multiple times while humans were developing still. Something that they just dealt with directly and narratively at times. And that happened here. Like, there was this grand apocalypse happening across the space, but because we were not yet a part of the system, it didn't reach us. Kara never reached us because we weren't a part of the network. They knew about us. They'd interact with us to some extent, but they were not actively engaged with us, and that saved our lives because, as that one other message said, like, it was like, what, hundreds of billions of deaths? Like, they were everywhere, and now they're likely not. Nanobots. Scans show some form of advanced nanobot inside the seemingly empty case. These bots are substantially smaller than any developed within the Federation, and it is not possible to ascertain their exact function. It would, however, be unwise to release them. Yeah, let's not. I don't want to be eaten up from the inside or whatever. So we actually have an extra level of concern here. One, as a human being in this game, I want to survive, obviously. And, well, we don't want to survive. On top of surviving, we also don't want to be trapped on this hostile alien world forever. We could go insane. We want to access people and reinterface with society and have a life and be happy and everything. But we have a third thing to worry about. This Kara disease spread across the galaxy. That means there's probably more of it somewhere besides just this specific planet. So we need to get back to the Federation to warn them about this disease so we can implement proper quarantine procedures and plans for what to do if we ever encounter it, so that doesn't spread to the homeworlds and wipe people out. And also potentially figure out how to manufacture the cure if possible, if I succeed in making that, so that we can actually use that. But like, both have to happen. It's not just enough to have a cure. You need to be able to avoid spreading it if anyone finds it, because now that we've found it here, there's a chance of finding it elsewhere, and that's a risk that could be devastating to the entire Republic and all that. So that's a problem to worry about too. Hooray! So it's not just our own personal livelihood and not just our own life and happiness, but also, like, we kind of bear the burden of what could happen to the entirety of our species if we don't make it out of here alive. Organic matter particulator. This device contains a highly unstable radioactive isotope, likely to destroy all organisms exposed to it, while leaving physical structures intact. Although it would function perfectly well as a weapon, it most likely used to sterilize spaces for later inhabitation. Without instructions, it would be unwise to interact with it. They think they just use it to get rid of any disease. It might work on Kara. It's obviously not a cure on that, in that case, because it kills all organic life, but it might work on Kara, which might mean that they can sterilize an area to know that it's safe. Rudimentary tablet. This device shares many similarities with the tablets used to access the alien facilities, although its structure is rather less complex. It may have served a similar purpose, granting security access and storing relevant data, and was thus kept here as a form of legacy support. Tracking implant. Wasn't that a really big implant? So it's not an implant for humanoids of my size. This construct is emitting a high bandwidth signal consistent with alien transmissions intercepted elsewhere. DNA on the exterior indicates it was once implanted inside one of the life forms indigenous to 4546b. They didn't just make one and put it there as a display. They used it on something, then ripped it back out, then put it on display. Its size suggesting the subject was a Leviathan class organism. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They didn't shove that in a peeper, or did they? Beyond tracking and broadcasting its location, the implant may also have recorded biological data on the subject. However, this data cannot be retrieved. Translation device. Universal translator. This device stores linguistics data for over 1,000 different languages. The core of the device may allow alien text to be read and translated. Analysis of onboard data reveals a number of ancient Earth languages. There we go. And the term CHBC Live appears many times in the device's data. Its import is unclear. The device seems to be configured to translate into the designer's language. It would not work the other way around. Oh. It just straight up isn't set up to even work for us. Can we find the setting for that somewhere? Or scan data. Ion Cube Fabricator. This device appears to be the origin of the raw mineral that forms the base of the ion cubes which power smaller alien systems, likely drawing power itself from the main thermal plant. This device may represent an almost limitless source of energy. So we just keep making more of those from there, perhaps? This is the big one, right? Enzyme 42 project data. According to translated data logs, an indigenous Leviathan species was found to produce a unique substance referred to as Enzyme 42, which inhibited the symptoms of the Kara bacterial infection in other indigenous organisms. The specimen was captured and contained in a purpose-built habitat for further study. The alien researchers went to great lengths to provide for the life form's environmental needs, including the import of interdependent flora and fauna via the on-site warp gate. However, its health quickly deteriorated. When quarantine was imposed, all warp gates and force fields were sealed. All attempts to develop the enzyme into a vaccine have been unsuccessful. So that's got to be the Sea Emperor, right? The Enzyme 42 is being created by the Sea Emperor, and we verified before that the Peepers are going through the vents. So the Peepers must be reaching the Sea Emperor through the vents and carrying the enzyme back to the surface and saving everything's life up there, basically. And the fact that the Peepers carry it, I'm guessing the Peepers carry the enzyme to other organisms of similar stature, and it just gets to them too. And then it also probably gets eaten by stalkers. I'd imagine that the Peeper gets eaten by stalkers and sand sharks and bone sharks, and then those creatures get the enzyme from eating the Peeper or other smaller organisms that the Peeper has reached with the enzyme. And then Leviathans probably get the enzyme from eating sand sharks and so on, the more medium-sized things. So the enzyme probably works its way up the food chain in that way, and as a result, it's essentially kept everything alive. That might be one of the only hopes we have, that maybe the rest of the galaxy is not at risk of infection, is that this apocalyptic outbreak may have happened so long ago, if you know what I mean, that Kara might have died out. If it's as lethal as it seems to be, it might have infected everything it touched and then killed that stuff. And it might have killed everything everywhere, like scorched earth. It might be one, because there's examples of plagues and diseases and stuff, or even predators that are so effective that they kill themselves because they kill everything that they can feed on, and then they burn out as a species or as a bacterium because they destroy their entire food supply. That might even be what's going on with the sea dragons a little bit, based on what the other message said. So if it's such a dangerous disease, it might have wiped out entire planets or even solar systems of all life that was susceptible to it. and as a result, it itself would die from lack of ability to infect anything and so on, because bacteria are alive, which means that they need energy to survive, and if there's nothing to feed on, then they will also die. So there could be a little catch-22 here where, one, the Peepers enzyme is saving this planet and keeping things alive, and that's why this planet's not been obliterated by this apparently dangerous bacterium that seems to be able to affect anything. It infected me and infected the Prometheans, or the Forerunners, or whatever you want to call them, the previous aliens. It infected them, it infected me, and it infected life forms on this planet. Every single life form I've seen basically seems to be susceptible to it, except actually I don't think I've seen any coral or fauna be infected. Sorry, flora or coral be infected, have I? It's just been the fauna. But all of that's been infected. And so that suggests that it might only infect animals, but that's even worse for it, because there's fewer animals than there are usually plants, and especially and insects and stuff like that. Like that you burn through that supply fast. But the Peepers may be keeping us in a stasis here, where the good news is this place is alive because of the Peepers. The bad news is it's kept the Kara alive, because if you fight back the Kara without actually wiping it out, then you're keeping it in this. It's actually the yin yang. Wow, yeah, the Kara and the Peeper / Sea Emperor enzyme is a yin yang situation where they're in a perfect stasis with each other, where the two of them are kind of equal and holding each other back, but neither of them can ever win, and so on, and they're kind of a part of each other and they rely on each other to survive. Not really. The Peeper and the Sea Emperor would be fine without the Kara, but it's pretty close to being a fitting comparison. Because if the Kara,
Seek fluid intake.
oh, what, when you read books and stuff and nerd out about shit for so long that you almost die because you're not eating and drinking, yeah, that's a common occurrence in this game. But it might very well be, if you go entirely on my logic and not, which is based on a lot of assumptions, let's be clear. It might be that the Kara would burn itself out if it wasn't for the Peepers, and that the Peepers are basically facilitating its continued existence by doing what they do and holding it back so that it doesn't just eat itself out of existence. There's some stuff to check out around here. I'll be right back. I'm gonna run down and eat and drink, and then we'll go back to exploring this place. I want to give the information and lore they're giving me the proper attention it deserves and all that. But that means I've got to eat periodically, because our character has a comically shallow stomach / bladder or whatever. Not really bladder. Our character struggles with hunger and whatnot.
Emergency power only. Oxygen production offline.
Vital signs stabilizing.
There we go. The planter still works, right? I don't know, I can't tell. I hope the planter still works when this place is unpowered. I mean, the Peepers aren't dying. Those things are still powered somehow. Not really sure how. The cameras still work when this thing has no power, somehow? Not sure how. Ah, there's more of them up there. So they're not gone. The ones I didn't successfully kill are still hanging around. Here and there. Don't see the dragon right now. Those things are of really similar biology to the sea dragon, like visibly. They have a similar structure across the board, really. Dad was proud. He didn't care how. I'm not really sure if it'd be faster to use the prawn suit to run around or not. But it kind of just feels like an unnecessary clunkiness to include as I run around, so I'm just kind of leaving it back there. So far, the only spiders that's attacked me is the one that I attacked, as it turns out. Sea Emperor fetus. Found preserved in display case, it was likely a child of the adult specimen contained within the facility. Physiology. Superficial damage to the specimen indicates it was artificially removed from its egg casing. Oh, they forcibly hatched it, so this thing never lived, probably. Stunted tissue development suggests the organism expired during the removal process. Tissue samples have been taken from the digestive tract. It appears the aliens were attempting to formulate a cure for the bacterium from enzymes produced in the specimen's digestive system. Without a young, healthy specimen, these efforts were in vain. Shit. They're just forcibly hatching babies and just ripping them out of the eggs and trying to analyze those. Shit. The fuck was that? Calm down, video game. What was that? That was so loud. Out of nowhere. Oh, that's the egg it came out of? Sea Emperor egg casing. Shell composition. The shell casing is formed from thick layers of carbon composite. Or carbon composite is the way I should emphasize the syllables. Suggesting an extensive gestation period. This Leviathan species may give birth just once per century, perhaps just once in their lifetimes. Once in their lifetime would be terrible. That means the Leviathan only goes down in population. You either succeeded at reproducing once or never, meaning that the population will either always be the same or always go down and never increase. That'd be huge. They wouldn't exist. Maybe once per century if they live for thousands of years, or at least, you know, like 200. Shell casing incisions. Precise incisions suggest a laser-based tool was used to cut open the egg casing and forcibly remove the fetus inside prior to full gestation. Analysis. Time pressure to develop a bacterial vaccine may have driven the alien researchers to cut open the egg and remove the fetus for study. It is also possible that, removed from its parent and natural habitat, some vital condition for the infant to hatch naturally was not met. So they're either saying the egg was never going to hatch because something was wrong, maybe because of their interference, and so they had to force it to hatch if they wanted to even access it. Or the idea is the car was killing them so fast they had to rip it out because they were waiting for it to gestate. It was not going to save them in time, although they failed regardless. We're talking about the thick shell. So it has a really... They're saying that because it's got a thick and really complicated shell, that means it must be a really long-term egg. I guess one idea is, since they reproduce with eggs, maybe they could reproduce only once per lifetime, because I'm thinking of like mammals and stuff where it's kind of 1-to-1, but it's one time giving birth per lifetime could be a whole clutch of eggs as opposed to one, so it actually makes sense potentially. I don't know what that sound was. That was loud and weirded me out. I'm 2 kilometers away from the tree base basically at this point. That was me entering the lava zone. That was weird to think about. That's a cliff. Let's be careful. Oh, we are hitching. Sprinting. This game does not like me sprinting. Oh, another warp gate. Just need an ion cube, right? which I don't have right now. Where do you take me? Maybe I don't need to reach the as HQ. Almost, it's a 1.5 kilometers straight up. Straight up, basically, too, yeah. Just after everything, we're still like in the center of the map. Alright, so I need 1 ion cube for that. If I'm lucky, that will also take me to the surface. It may take me directly from here to there. I think it's struggling to load this area because there's so many unique assets. On top of being a big complicated room, all of those different things are different unique character models. And when I leave this room, I think it unloads them so it can run better. But then it has to load them all back up when I run in here. And it like freaks out. Whoa. This is a super cool facility. Look at the tubes. Hey, there's peepers in the tubes. Just like we expected. Yeah, there's a peeper going through periodically, like we expected to see. Oh yeah, there's one in this central one. Yep, there they go. Something about this reminds me of this room full of tubes from Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, but that was a very different design. I'm thinking of it regardless. There's brain coral. And that's probably the blue grass thing I read about a moment ago. The one that prefers caves. And had like a 2-sentence description. Not all things are created equally interesting. Outflow pipe. Enzyme hosts peepers leaving containment facility. The outflow pipes are filled with peepers traveling back towards the surface. Specimen shows no symptoms of infection. All specimens scanned are carrying enzyme 42, which data suggests inhibits the bacterium. Specimens' stomach cavities are otherwise empty, suggesting that they may have purged the contents before entering the pipes. Assessment. If peepers have evolved to distribute the enzyme via the pipe network, this may explain part of the mechanism by which life on 4546b has survived since the bacterial outbreak. Yeah, no new information there, except for the part that maybe peepers actually have an actual habit to like spew out their contents and be as empty as possible when they go down here to maximize the effectiveness of the trip, which is interesting to think about at the very least. Yeah, lots of familiar stuff here. So this is mostly stuff from the surface, which seems to suggest that the Sea Emperor lived on the surface before. Inflow pipe. Peepers entering the containment facility. The pipes drawing water into the containment facility are filled with peepers arriving from the surface. The fish show no signs of distress. The specimens scanned have all consumed high quantities of seeds and organic matter from the surface. Some specimens are beginning to show signs of infection. Oh. So peepers just straight up can carry stuff inside their body and then remove it willingly? It seems like they're keeping... It makes sense. The Sea Emperor seems to be talking to me telepathically. And these guys seem to be keeping the Sea Emperor alive. Like, this is a really important system. Like, they're taking food down there to keep the Sea Emperor alive, and then going back up with the enzyme to keep the planet alive. Like, the Peepers are the hero of the story. Which I kind of already knew, which is why I put them in my... That's why I put them in my aquarium after we discovered them behaving the way they were at that vent. Like, this is a bit of a real reveal, but they largely showed their cards the moment the peepers were scannable at the surface, spewing the enzyme everywhere. That entry pretty much gave it away. This is just getting to see it actually in action down here.